It's time for Money for Lunch, where we feed your brain and your business with supersized portions of business and financial news. Now your host, Bert Martinez.
All right, we are back. My next guest, Liza Sichon, an insider known for her broad business orientation and deep working knowledge of global human resources. Liza Sichon, welcome to Money for Lunch.
Hi, Bert. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to getting into this. And I want to ask you this, okay? You're known for being a transition coach. What exactly is a transition coach?
Okay, great question. So we all go through transitions in our lives. And clients hire me to help people who are either ready for promotion or those who are not doing well in their job or those who are actually moving to another assignment or moving to another country. And we all go through these transitions, but sometimes we ignore that there are phases of transitions. And so when people want to be very successful in their new assignment, that's where they hire a transition coach. Or sometimes when they're ready to exit the company, they go through transitions as well.
Sure. Okay, and that kind of makes sense because sometimes we're ready to transition, right? We want to go from here to there, but maybe we're not really sure how to do it. We don't know maybe how to prepare. I've met several people, and I'm sure everybody is familiar with somebody who made a change that they thought they were ready for, and then maybe they made the change too soon or maybe too late or whatever, and had lost some of that momentum.
Right. Sometimes we can control the transition, and sometimes we cannot.
Absolutely. All right, so let me ask you this then. What is your take on this? How does one know when it's time to transition to another level or to another place or whatever the transition is going to be?
Correct. Sometimes we know it, and so we plan it, and so some of the cues we get are we're either feeling bored or feeling like we know everything about this particular job and we're ready to move to a different level, but the opportunities are not there. Or sometimes transitions are unplanned, and it catches us by surprise, and we don't know what hit us in the head. And this could be, in a dramatic incident or in some trauma, or maybe we just feel that we're, all of a sudden things are not working out, and we didn't know we were headed for a divorce, or actually we just get fired by surprise. So there are transitions that we can plan and control, and there are those that are just totally out of left field, and we need to get ourselves together so that we can move on.
Let me ask you this, because I've heard this multiple times, but I want to get your opinion on this. I've heard it said that most of the time when somebody transitions out of a company, they're not leaving the company, but they're leaving either their boss or the environment. What's your take on that?
Yes, a lot of research has shown that the manager has actually a direct impact on the day-to-day life of the employee. And when the employee finds it unbearable, when the environment is either too aggressive for them, or they're being picked on, or they're not feeling they're always meeting the standards of the manager, their personal level of satisfaction dramatically goes down. But they may still like the company. And so at that point, they could look for other opportunities within the company. But a lot of studies have shown that it's true. People leave because they're no longer in sync with their manager.
Sure. And you know what? I mean, it could be a perfectly pleasant environment, but maybe what's happening now is that they're bored. Maybe they're not, like you said, they're not being challenged, and so therefore it's time to move on, right? It's time to do something else. Maybe it's a different department. Maybe the company's great, but you got to find a different department. Maybe it's time to write a book about what you know, but you have to do something because you're not being stimulated or engaged in the workplace.
Yes, and a lot of times this boils down to your values and your natural talents. When you feel that you're not honoring your values, and you feel that your natural talents are put to waste. For example, if you're a very creative person, but your current job needs you to follow rules and procedures, and you don't have any ability to make decisions or to innovate, then you feel that your natural talents are being wasted. And this is when people start to figure out, I think it's time to move on. But most of the time, they don't know how. And this
Yes.
is where a transition coach can help them.
Right, and not to mention, hey, they don't know how. There's a little fear. There's always that fear of the unknown. So let me ask you this. Let's talk about the negatives of a transition. How does one minimize the negatives or the negative effects of change or transition?
Sure. People generally do not like transitions. So if you think about announcements in the workplace, well, this person is going to be head of special projects, then that is cue that, okay, the person's in transition because they are moved out of their current job and they're going into a new job. And so transition, generally, people just want to make it as short as possible. They want to jump to the next job as quickly as possible. Or if they're fired, they want to move on to the next job. The first job offer that they get, they want to take that because people are uncomfortable with transitions. And what we want to do is let people know that transitions are actually great. And we want you to enjoy your transitions because as difficult and uncomfortable as it may be initially, it's a time for reinvention and renewal. It's a time to really take stock of what happened, how can I make sure that I approach this job differently, and really listen to the cues that had taken you to this transition. So you need to give yourself a lot of time, and you need to take care of yourself. That's why they say, take a break, take a vacation. Don't just jump to the next job offer without asking yourself, okay, what do I really want to do next? And we've seen a lot of stories of people who have been very successful in taking advantage of that transition. It could be a traumatic experience in their lives, or it could be something that's really bad and unexpected, but they took advantage of that to create a better life for themselves. And don't be afraid of transitions then. If it happens, just go with the flow and understand that there are phases you need to go through. Yes, you will be displaced. Yes, you will feel out of sorts. You feel like life is not in your control. That's all part of transition. Eventually, as you take stock, as you reflect, as you go inward, then you'll realize, what are my values? What do I really want for myself in the next 5 years? And then create that vision for yourself so that will pull you towards your next chapter instead of being pushed into your next phase.
Yes, I like that. So I like that because, everything, when, especially if you get fired. If you were to get fired, it's almost like losing a loved one. Right? You have to go through all those different stages to get over it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and that could even happen when you quit and you walk out. You have that quitter's remorse. Did I do the right thing? Am I, oh my gosh, what have I done? Let me ask you this, because you're kind of uniquely qualified. I mean, you have lived in 3 continents. So obviously, I think you're probably a great person to ask this question to, and that is transitioning in a global sense or in a global business when you are asked to go from, let's say, the U.S. to maybe go to a different country like, let's say, I don't know, England or Taiwan or something like that. What personal traits must one have to succeed when you're doing this, when you're, going from one country to the next? Kind of walk us through this.
Yes, and in my career in human resources, we've always been in the process of selecting the right people to put on jobs. So if your company wants to expand in a new country, or if you've had an acquisition in a new country, we think through, okay, who do we send there? And sometimes we only look at technical competence, which is really important, right? Is the person qualified to do the job? But we also need to look at the personal traits of the person. And they're the typical personal traits, which is adaptability, flexibility, pragmatic intelligence. Those are all important things. But for me, based on what I've seen, and I've managed groups and teams all over the world, for me the most important thing is curiosity. Like, is the person interested in even finding out what's going on in another part of the world? And some people have not really taken that. I mean, if they travel, they just stayed within, their country. But if somebody is interested in exploring the world and going to different countries and really, not just joining a cruise or a tour bus, but actually really being on their own, and even if they don't speak the language, just curious about how people live, what people do, I think that's a number one trait. Because if you're not curious, then you cannot have the second trait, which is really respect for others. They may do when people do something different from us, we call it weird. Oh, those people are weird because we've never seen that before, and it's very different from us. But if we have the respect and we show that respect and say, can you help me understand what it is that you do, or how is business conducted in your country, and what are the things that I need to do or say to make me successful? Then curiosity and respect will lead to all the other things, adaptability, flexibility, communication, collaboration. Those are all the key things, because in other countries, verbal communication is not the only way to communicate. There's lots of cues you have to pick up from the environment and internalize that to make you successful.
Right. You know what, and I like what you said there too, that really, does that individual want to immerse himself in the culture because it's a different environment? And obviously, if you're a single person, it's going to be a lot easier decision to make than if you're a married person with children. I know I had friends of mine who moved to Qatar, and it was a family decision, and they went out there. The company sent them out there a couple of times and they would go out there and spend a couple of weeks to kind of get used to it, right? To see if they really were going to like it. And so it is a different altogether environment. And sometimes it's not, even if you went from, let's say, the U.S. to Australia, where the language is going to be very similar, the customs are going to be a little bit different, right? And some of the meanings are going to be a little bit different. And as you mentioned, some of the body language or other communications are going to be different. So you have to really be aware of what you're doing.
Right. Oh, yes. Australia and the United States are very different in a lot of ways. And some people think that it'll be easy to assimilate in the country where their native language is spoken, but actually they're missing the whole point of culture, which is a very big essence of how you interact with each other.
Absolutely. Lisa, we're out of time. Would love to bring you back and talk more about transitioning and secrets of high-achieving women as well that we didn't really get a chance to. Liza Sichon, thank you so much for stopping by and visiting.
Thank you very much, Bert. Have a great day.
You too. All right, guys, we're off and running. Great stuff there from all of our guests. I really liked what Lisa had to say about transition. We're all going to have a transition, whether we initiate it or somebody initiates it for us, and we all have to go through these steps. We have to be aware of these steps that we all have to go through to get to where we are, where we want to go from where we are, something like that. Anyway, you understand what I'm talking about. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and listening. We appreciate your interaction on Facebook and Twitter. Remember, you were created to succeed.
Tune in Monday through Friday here on Money for Lunch, and check out our website at moneyforlunch.com.